He's got that.
Hey team, how is everyone doing? I hope you guys are great. Everybody, Dapper Dinosaur, my favorite co-host, at least my most frequent co-host,
I was
has
going to say, I won't
joined
tell
us.
everyone else.
Yeah, let's on. Dan might be joining us later. It depends on whether or not his kiddo decides to sleep. Uh, yeah, Dapper, how are you doing today? I know we were getting angry in the pre-stream because we were talking about your stream from last night.
Yeah, I shouldn't just never talk about Kent with Bent unless it's live. But I'm doing pretty well. I'm currently rendering out a video. It is, hold on, let me check. It is 66% done, and I started it at let me check. About 9 a.m. my time, which is Pacific time, basically. So yeah, that's taken a while. But I also did schedule some doggy vaccines. So there were some doggies who needed a bunch of vaccines, and now they're going to get them early next month. So yay!
Yay!
Yeah,
That's
that's
a
my
good
day.
thing. Vaccines are such a great thing. Don't you agree?
I do agree. Yeah, vaccines are one of the most unmitigatedly good things that exist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, Basically, the only downside is if you can't have them because of like being immunocompromised or allergic to important ingredients. And that's not really so much of a downside for the vaccine; it's an unfortunate circumstance of reality. But basically, yeah,
Yeah.
vaccines are an almost entirely unmitigated good thing.
And did you know that vaccines are both we both better understand the mechanism of how they work, right? So we better understand how they work and what they're going to do, and have fewer side effects and are safer than Tylenol. Were you aware?
I'm not sure I was aware that they were definitely safer than Tylenol, but it's not surprising.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, well, I have
hey,
definitely
I'm
people.
I'm a fan of vaccines.
Yes. I remember I once told someone who was worried about having her kid vaccinated, I was like, look, the absolute most dangerous part by a large margin of you going to get your son vaccinated is the car ride to the doctor's office. He
Absolutely.
is hundreds of times more likely to die
Yeah.
because you get into an accident than he is because of to have any ill effects from vaccines beyond the standard, like, yeah, he might be sore a little bit and might feel a little feverish because that's what they do.
Yeah. So in store for us tonight,
Oh,
Dapper,
God.
this is what we have in store for us tonight. Um okay. So this is a team SFT video. Uh and I'm 6 minutes in. I'm 6 minutes and 21 seconds in
What is
to a
that,
25-minute
just the
video.
intro?
But the first 6 minutes was actually it was it, we already watched the first 6 minutes. They have that first 6
Oh,
minutes uploaded as a separate video. That's their arguments for why radiometric dating is
got
an
it.
invalid way to measure the age of the Earth.
I was
And so
just
then,
making a joke about how ridiculously long Standing's intro video is.
gotcha.
Yeah.
So then this is where they start interviewing this David McQueen. I don't actually know who that is. He seems to be an older gentleman, and that's as far as I know about him. And he has
Okay.
a colorful map behind him of some variety.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not sure what that is,
Yeah, I don't know what that is either.
but
Um,
it's up on like a green screen stand, which is also kind of weird
yeah,
because
yeah,
that's what that is. I own one of those. That's a green screen stand.
yeah. I made this one out of PVC pipe, but obviously it's not a green screen stand. I just have a curtain so you can't see how messy the rest of
Yeah,
my
and
office
actually,
is.
even those clips, those are the ones that come when you buy like a green screen stand on Amazon or something.
Yeah. But anyway, so what this video is supposed to be is
Ooh.
debunking counter arguments. So there should be addressing some of the points that we perhaps brought up in one of my last live streams. Hopefully.
Interesting.
Um.
Now, what are
So
the chances that this is actually like subtweeted at you, and they're just not actually mentioning your name or anything? They're just being
I
like, "Oh,
have
these are the counter arguments that we've heard, and it's actually just you?
I don't know. There's a possibility because this did come out after I did that first live stream.
Mm-hmm.
But this also looks like this is an edited together video, you know?
Okay.
So, because oftentimes they're like live streams, which is what this looks like, are like 5 hours long.
Yeah, 5 hours in which, yes, about 25 minutes of which is worth actually viewing.
Yeah, so hopefully this 25 minutes is the 25 minutes that's worth actually viewing. But we already are ahead of my normal pace of watching and debunking videos in that we're starting 6 minutes in. So,
well, I'm sure we'll get at least 45 more seconds.
At least 45 more seconds in the next like hour and a half. So that'll be fun. Okay. All right. I'm going to press play and let's just jump right into this.
So here's the next question I had that I think is important. I've heard this being said by the quite a lot, Professor McLean. So I'd like to get your thoughts on it, both you and George. So the critics claim that we cannot date rocks of known age.
So that, of course, is not what we say.
Yeah, that's not what anyone has ever said.
You can certainly. Oh shoot! I forgot to plug into my Ethernet. Oof. That's why my signal is getting so weak. All right, hold on. I got it.
I blame all of this on Maddie. I didn't do anything.
You should blame everything on me.
I'll hold you to that.
Okay.
Go flat
stub
tire,
your toe.
Maddie.
It's definitely my fault. You know, all that jazz. Okay. We've got Ethernet. I've got backup internet going. So we certainly don't say that you can't date rocks of known ages. It's that if it's a young rock, right? You can't date recently formed rocks. That would be a better way to characterize the argument. Yeah.
And I mean, one of the things that's important to note is that we have historical volcanic eruptions, most importantly Pompeii, for which we have a calendar date provided to us by Pliny the Younger, who, by the way, was around to see his family members die in the explosion or eruption, most notably Pliny the Elder, his dad.
Ow.
Yeah, his dad died in that. Basically, Pliny the Younger was like, hey, you know, these earthquakes and whatnot, I'm gonna kind of go get out of here. And Pliny the Elder was like, yeah, I'm gonna keep partying. I'll see you later. And that was a bad call. Yeah. So we actually have historical accounts from eyewitnesses of the eruption who survived by being far enough away. And we have calendar years, because the thing is, by the time we get to that point, we have a pretty good ability to tell, based on the dating systems used by Romans, when events in the Roman Empire occurred relative to our modern understanding. And so when we radiometrically tested the rock from Vesuvius, it came back with the calendar year, with an margin of error of within that calendar year. So it's like, yeah, it works. What doesn't work, though, is when you use a technique that returns, dates with an error margin of like 400 million years on a rock that formed 20 years ago.
Right.
Like, anything that you get is going to be invalid because you're essentially trying to measure like the width of a proton with your yardstick.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing, buddy?
Exactly. One, I love that we're already misrepresenting the argument right up front.
Yeah.
And in the side chat, yes, Erica over at Gibbon has done, Standing for Truth and Raw Matt wrote a book that was, I don't even remember the title, but Erica's been going through that like chapter by chapter, and her series is called Library of Errors, and it is a delight.
Don't even try to remember the title, because the title is like as long and as obtuse as like a late 19th century title, like Origin of the Species, because everyone's like, oh, it's Origin of the Species. Like, no, it's Origin of the Species, or the preservation of favored races in the struggle for survival. And it's just like, why are you doing this? That is not the style of titles anymore. Please stop. As creationist said, wrote a
Do you think
book.
he thought it sounded more science-y that way?
Honestly, I think,
Yeah. Okay.
Because we can't take the whole time up with that book, because it's, oh my goodness.
That's why Erica has a whole series on it. Mm-hmm. So it's
Go watch
bad.
It. It's like 12 hours long already or something.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so he's posed the question, but incorrectly. So that's fun.
Mm.
And then let's see. And
Always
apparently,
good when you straw man right off the bat.
right. I also apparently Dave McQueen is a professor of something, so that's cool.
Yeah, but at a young Earth creationist school, presumably.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah. There's a reason that there's a Futurama joke that's I got a degree in truthology at Christian Tech.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to say that there aren't any good Christian schools, but if your geology guys are teaching you young Earth creationism, yeah, you might as well have gotten that degree in truthology.
Right. So that's like my I don't like so many schools are rooted in religious institutions, right? Like for crying out loud, Notre Dame, right?
Harvard was founded as a seminary.
Harvard was founded as a seminary, right? So it's not whether or not something has ties or history to a religious organization. Fundamentally, we have a system for this, and it's accreditation, right?
Mhm.
So if you can go to a Christian university. There's nothing wrong with that. But make sure your degree is accredited. Anyway. Okay.
Because there's not been enough time for the decay of the parent isotope.
That part is correct.
Yeah, often that is the case.
Often that's the case. Yeah.
Yep.
And therefore, we would expect to get a wrong date. So in other words, they're saying that we shouldn't be
hold on.
looking to
not necessarily a wrong date, but we should get a date where the margin of error is like orders of magnitude larger than just the expected actual age. So what is the point? That's not wrong.
Right. And it also, one of the things that there's more detail and nuance to this counter argument, right? Because one of the things is that oftentimes they're using like potassium argon dating instead of argon dating, right? And like, again, that's a different ruler. So it's like, because potassium to argon has a half-life of a billion years, you know, and so it's not only like trying to date something, it's like you're using the wrong tool twice, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like you couldn't date rocks from Mount Vesuvius. I don't think you could date those with potassium argon dating.
I think they would basically just return as essentially zero.
Because you would get the margin of error is what your date would
the margin
be.
of error would like contain zero. So at that point, it's functionally indistinguishable from zero.
Exactly.
They're new as far as potassium argon is concerned.
Right, but I think you could use argon. But anyway, so and that's like, I don't know, there's the chart that they bring up, like that we use this type of dating. It's like, well, one, there's no radiometric dating that can date something that young. Two, if you're dating a young rock, that's the wrong tool, you know. So it's just multiple levels of incorrect tools.
Yeah.
It's like
conveniently though, no one here is likely to be alive for when we can in fact date, like say the Mount St. Helens eruptions with radiometric dating, because it'll happen.
Yeah,
we
will be able to, just not today,
and not in any of these people's likely lifetime.
Right. Okay. So let's see what we got.
Examples of dates derived from rocks of unknown age because it's bad methodology. Is this just a rescue device, or what are your thoughts on this, gentlemen?
Yeah, it's a.
Can I just add a little bit to that? Well, Donnie, if that's the case, they should be giving a zero date.
No.
If these things don't have the.
So.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Because it's the margin of error, right?
Right.
It is giving a date of zero because it's giving a date that's within the margin of error of that measuring tool.
Right. If zero is within your margin of error, then you have effectively dated it at zero.
At zero. Exactly.
And that's, I mean, now there are some things where like, okay, well, how about that time that Steve Austin got a date that actually didn't encompass zero within the margin of error from the Mount St. Helens, and it was at 2.5 million. Well, when other geologists checked those samples in his paper, they were like, oh, hey, how do you know these aren't xenocrysts that would cause an anomalously old age? And his response was, they're not. That was it.
Oh,
he just asserted it. It was like, okay, that's great, but they're topologically consistent with xenocrysts. He's like, yeah, but they're not. Okay. Yeah. Sure, buddy.
The other thing that's important, and so remember, team, I'm not a geologist, right? Like I took a bunch of geophysics class, but more planetary science side of geophysics in undergrad. So I have a basic working knowledge of the basics, but I am not an expert in this. I don't know the details. But like one thing that's important to remember is that not every rock, or specifically not any rock, can be radiometrically dated. That's another important thing to remember, because there's things that like, oh no, in this rock, our basic assumptions about like the assumptions that we need for this dating method, if they're not going to hold in that rock, then we don't measure that rock.
Right.
You know. I'm sorry you have to run, Zebro. We'll see you next time. Maybe, finish watching later.
So specifically for people who might not know, because it's a little obscure, so xenocrysts are basically crystals, and they have extremely high melting points. And most of them are extremely old. And so what happens is, if you get any of these in the rock that's going to go up to make up the lava that's going to build up inside of a volcano, then it's almost certainly going to be old. It's going to be older, because it's not going to melt. And melting is what resets radiometric clocks, right? So because it hasn't melted during this event, when you date a sample that includes these, then that itself is going to skew their age older. And curiously enough, the only date that Steve Austin got, who's the big one that they all cite for known age rocks, right? The one time he got a date that didn't encompass 0 in its margin of error was the one time that he had rocks that looked like they had xenocrysts in them, which he hasn't really had an adequate response to. And so I'm curious to see if any of them bring up the fact that, yeah, usually we don't actually read 0, because that's a ridiculous requirement, but these dates do encompass 0 within their margin of error. So what gives?
And like, just to kind of state the obvious here, right? If something has a radiometric dating system isn't going to measure 0 as its answer.
Right.
It can't be, because it's number plus or minus margin of error, right? So since negative time doesn't exist, right?
Right. And there's also other things that can give you, like, what are you reading? So in the case of Steve Austin, for example, what was being read was actually residual argon that was in the test chamber, because the test chamber can't be fully evacuated, because there's no such thing as a perfect vacuum pump.
Right.
And so they knew that results at around 200,000 years and younger were just explained by residual argon in the test chamber being read by the device reading, the chemical composition of the interior of the chamber, which is why, surprise, surprise, 4 out of his 5 samples tested less than 200,000 years old, which is essentially 0.
Right. So that's another thing to remember, team, is that not only does like the methodology itself have like, there's error in every calculation. So a particular methodology can only be so precise. And then every instrument, so you might get a different measurement on instrument A versus instrument B, because each of those instruments has to be calibrated based on, because there is background radiation. That's a thing that exists. And usually to do radiometric dating, you're not taking a sample and putting it through a mass spec, right? And getting, this is the number of potassium atoms and the number of argon atoms, right? You're often measuring the radiation that's coming off of it. And so that, like, you have to know for that sample, or for that sample and for that instrument, what are all the possible sources of that type of radiation?
Right. Like if you're getting beta decay, well, that has multiple sources. So are you sure it's what you're looking for? Maybe.
Exactly. And that's super important for carbon-14 dating, because guess what? Potassium argon, there's potassium in most, if not all, living creatures too, as well as carbon. And potassium 40 has a half-life of 1 billion years. So you'll have background beta radiation well past all of the carbon-14 decaying.
Wait, can we talk about the fact that raw mat thinks that half-lives are linear? So if you have, say, 100 grams of carbon-14, after 2 half-lives, you'll have none.
Oh, no, honey, no.
Yeah, he thinks that.
Oh, do we need to do... Oh, shoot, what is
Only
that?
if it comes up on this one.
Okay, well, help me remember. You'll have to remember, what is it? You learn it in calculus, and it's somebody's paradox about limits. Zeno's paradox.
Zeno's paradox. Yeah.
Zeno's paradox.
With
Okay.
there's a tortoise and a runner.
Yeah, there's a tortoise and a runner, but in my mind, I bring it back to football. Right, football penalties, half the distance to the goal.
Okay. Yeah. How many penalties does it take to get you a touchdown?
Yeah.
Infinite.
Exactly. Clearly, infinite. Yeah, but that's silly. Anyway. Okay. All right. Let's keep playing.
The daughter elements, then they should be giving a 0 date.
And let me jump in here with one of my favorite comments. I never wanted to date rocks because I met Mrs. McQueen 50 years ago. I'd rather date redheads.
That's if we were playing, if you're on your channel, I would take a, I don't know, is that a casual sexism? It feels a little like casual sexism.
Well, does redheads include male redheads, or?
I don't know. That's true. I guess, no judgment on my part.
Lots of people have red hair, and it's not just women.
Okay. So we have a question in chat. Or drink for dad joke from Icarus. Okay. Right. Yeah, I'm drinking some like kombucha tonight because I'm a crazy person. But okay,
I mean, creationist says yes. I think it's casual sexism. Yeah, I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
We could interpret it in a way that it's just so that we don't have to feel worse about watching the stream.
Yeah. Okay, so can you explain error bars? Isn't it not the case that they indicate an exact threshold beyond which the real measure it couldn't possibly lie, but merely the 1 sigma range of the real value? Yes and no. You would get to if the thing that is said is error bar, then it is this number within this range, right? And we are like as confident and so like scientists, and so I hate using the word impossible, right? But it's we cannot with any more confidence say that it is like the highest confidence we can possibly give is that it's in this range. And so if it says error bar, then that's not the same as a 1 sigma range. With that 1 sigma range, because 1 sigma is specifically if your data can fall along a Gaussian distribution. So 1 sigma is 1 standard deviation from the mean, but that's only a term that makes sense to use if your data falls along a normal distribution. So that's a common thing that you would use in statistics. Where you would say like a p-test or a t-test or something like that, where you could give a confidence interval, which is it conceptually means the same thing as error bars, but it has a different technical definition, right? So we could so like when I'm doing my data, I'm using statistics. So I'm not using error bars. I'm using a like statistical confidence interval to say like, I can say with 90 greater than 99% confidence that this signal is different from this signal or something like that. So yeah, so you're totally right that there's a lot of detail in what we mean by error bars. Colloquially, I'm meaning like it's somewhere in this range. Yeah. Would you add anything to that? Answering that question?
No, I thought that was great. That's basically exactly what I would have said.
Okay, cool. I got into some math there. It's like Gaussian distributions and all that.
The only somewhat thing I might add is that like certain measuring devices like an analog temperature meter or like a physical length measuring thing, you're not going to run any kind of statistical thing. You're just going to say, all right, my smallest increment is this. And so if that's my smallest increment, then my error bar is going to be, basically about just under that smallest increment, plus or minus, because that's how I'm measuring it. Assuming your measurement is calibrated.
Exactly.
So if you're marked in 1/12 of an inch, you're going to report lengths plus or minus about a 1/12 of an inch.
Yeah. Okay, let's let him, I don't know, make jokes at his wife's expense. I think that's where we're at.
Oh, good.
Myself. But if you insist on dating rocks, you need to understand this diagram here. Remember that that rocks, and I'll use RX for that, rocks are formed because of minerals.
Yeah.
So let me hold it up to the screen here.
Okay. I like this. We got a rock. It's made of minerals.
Rocks are formed of minerals.
Yeah.
So actually what you're dating are the minerals inside the rock.
Hey, that's true.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Good job.
Which is why when you have minerals that are substantially older and haven't melted, you can get anomalously old dates. Yay.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's like the oldest zircon, the oldest mineral that we found on Earth is older than the oldest rock, right? Because like the oldest mineral is 4.4 billion years, the oldest rock is 4.1. So the rock that originally formed with that oldest zircon mineral, that rock is long gone, and it just left behind that little shard.
Right.
Anyhow.
The standard rescue device that the evolutionary community uses, Mount St. Helens erupts, or there's a lava flow in the Grand Canyon. And so when you go in to measure those minerals that I'm showing there, you're measuring minerals that are ancient. Even though the lava may have flowed out at in Hawaii, that lava, that basaltic lava, is going to carry minerals that have an old and give an old date. Now, there's quite a critique of that, but
okay, so I'm like mildly confused because like what he just said is the true thing, but he framed it as a rescue device, and so I don't know. I was like, no, you clearly understand it. You just explained it correctly.
The only way to refute this is basically to show that no, you never include older minerals within newer rocks.
Right.
I mean, good luck showing that one, Mr. or I guess Dr. McQueen. I don't actually.
Dr. McQueen, Professor McQueen.
I'm just gonna go with McQueen.
All right, McQueen. Steve. I wish his name was Steve though.
Steve. We could just call him Freddie because his last name has Queen in it.
There you go. We could do that.
He probably wouldn't like that. I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
If I start giving someone a nickname that they haven't chosen for themselves, that's even slightly derogatory. That I've lost even the basic, normal, baseline human respect for you, and you're now on the level of like an animal that I get to just call whatever I want because it's just an animal, like a dog.
Yeah.
So I'm not. Yeah. I'm not there with.
All right. So we'll talk to David, we'll talk to David, even though we do want to call him Lightning, like Don Giovanni in the chat.
Let's think of it like this.
Okay.
Let's imagine this pin here, as I move it across the screen, to be a motorcycle driving on the road in Hawaii back in the 1980s. And then let's pick up the Play-Doh and have the Play-Doh.
I love that he casually has toys.
Come over the top of this as a lava flow.
Okay.
So if we find a 1970 classic Davidson inside this lava, what do we know? We know that this lava flowed out after 1970.
Yeah.
Because we got something we know.
That's true.
I don't see how this is a counterpoint, but
I don't see how it's a counterpoint. Yeah.
It's just like yes, you continue to be true or truthful, I guess, accurate.
Yeah. To me, the question would be the better. Maybe I don't know where he's going with this analogy, but if I was going to make a motorcycle analogy for rocks and minerals, it would be, okay, you have a 1965 motorcycle and it just rusts out and is like unusable, right? Except for, I don't know, the seat cover, right? So then you get a new 2021 motorcycle and everything from it is from 2021, but you put your old 1965 seat cover on it, right? How old is the motorcycle?
Right.
Right. That's kind of the question. So it's if you dated the seat cover, right, you might naively think, oh, this motorcycle is from 1965. But if you looked at everything else, so we can understand that a thing that is new can have older parts in it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that was off the top of my head. Go me.
Yay.
I don't normally do analogies off the top of my head because the Navy scared me away from that because it was never do an analogy off the top of your head because one of your sailors will turn it into a dick joke.
I mean, it's pretty hard to avoid dick jokes in the Navy.
It's very difficult.
I feel like at a certain point I would just give up and just be like, whatever, dick jokes, let's just do it.
Yeah, let's just. I wanted to, but I wasn't allowed with students, right?
Oh.
So, that was you have to be a professional, blah 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 blah. Anyway, so okay, let's see where we're going with our motorcycle analogy.
No, that can be dated. So whether it's a motorcycle or a 55 Chevy that gets buried under one of these modern lava flows, it doesn't matter what the radiometric dating says. We know that it had to be after 1955 or after when the Harley Davidson was formed.
So that again, that's true. I don't know how this is a counter argument.
The thing he's saying directly that, okay, so we know that if we date the older minerals, it has to be actually younger than the older minerals. Yes, that's why we check for the inclusion of minerals that are known to not be able to melt at the temperatures that melted the surrounding rock.
Yeah.
What is... I don't understand why he thinks this is a refutation. This is just a nothing.
Yeah, this is like this is factual. Okay, continue.
Formed. And so that's one way to approach it. Now, exactly why the evolutionary community will say, oh, you guys at Standing Truth have not properly covered isocon dating.
Hold up.
You all have not.
The scientific community is never going to say a damn thing to Standing for Truth because he has never, ever, ever even gotten the basics of the science right to be bothered with a response.
Right?
He would actually have to be able to understand the very basics of anything to even warrant attention from the scientific community. The people who respond to Standing for Truth are people who either aren't scientists or who are and just have it as a fun hobby to dunk on young Earth creationists. That's it. The scientific community is never going to write a single paper about Standing for Truth because he doesn't rise to the level of high schooler in terms of his understanding of basic science.
Yeah.
I just cannot let that one pass without saying, wait a minute. Sorry.
Yeah. That's because, this for me is, there's a reason that I do these as live streams, right? Where it's just like reacting and doing stuff off the top of my head. Because that is the amount of effort that I feel these arguments are worth, you know?
Oh, yeah.
This is how I hang out with my friends on a Wednesday night, you know, and have
it's this or streaming Star Trek.
Right. Yeah. And we did that last week. No.
Right. The thing is, Standing for Truth doesn't even rise to the level of the Answers in Journal, right? Like Answers in Genesis wouldn't publish his trash. Right. He can't even meet the formatting guidelines for publishing a normal book, which are pretty loose.
It's pretty loose. And also the Answers Journal, like there's no like scientist worth their salt that knows that exists, right? Like I'm a little sad I know that exists.
Well, I mean, look, if it weren't for your weird hobby, that's what I'm trying to say. I combined a hobby and habit and came out a hobbit, and that's not right. If it weren't for your weird hobby of dunking on young Earth creationists, you wouldn't know about it. Like,
exactly.
No one in the real science is going to be citing the Answers Journal as anything other than like, hey, we decided to do some math just to show why this commonly held belief in the United States is stupid, which is a thing that happened. Erica, again, Gibbon has a nice video about a study that was just like, hey, let's just statistically test the idea of the common ancestry of all primates, humans included, versus the null hypothesis of separate ancestry. Oh, common ancestry is supported with a likelihood of the null being true of 1 times 10 to the negative 700 something power. Okay, yeah, that's pretty good, pretty well confirmed. Humans are related to chimpanzees and lemurs.
Yeah, pretty well confirmed. Yeah. So, all right, let's see what he's got to say. Oh, also,
sorry for exploding a little bit there.
You're great. Professor Freya, goodness, sorry, Vesta, I can't talk tonight. Did some research for us. David R. McQueen trained in mineralogy at the University of Tennessee, Bachelor of Arts in Geology in the University of Michigan, Master's in Geology. So he should have
no PhD.
no PhD.
So he's not Dr. McQueen.
Not Dr. McQueen.
Got
so
it.
we'll just keep calling him David. But he has some geology cred. You know, he has some like real knowledge.
But what that means is he knows better.
He knows better. Though he hasn't said anything insane yet. So let's see what happens.
The insane bit is the implication that this is a problem for radiometric dating.
Yeah. That's like, I'm trying to figure out what he thinks the problem is, you know? Okay.
Properly covered the issue of this or that. These are rescue devices, which between now and Christmas, George and I can take a whole 2 hours on something like isochron dating and show the problems with it.
John,
go for it, buddy.
Go for it, please. I would like for you to do that. Give me some like meat to chew on in these live streams, man. Like,
yeah,
like make this harder for me.
Right?
You know,
this should be a show where like you normally have a few beers and can also easily dismiss all of this.
Yeah,
there should be some actual content coming out. Like,
exactly.
Please write a paper as to why isochron doesn't work. Get it published in a real journal.
Make me look something up. Come up with an argument. I would
love to do one of these and have to look something up.
Right? Like, come up with an argument that I don't, that I, as a non-expert with just a passing level of understanding, can just be like, that's dumb for these reasons. Right?
Yeah.
If your argument had any meat to it whatsoever, right? I should have to look something up.
Yeah. My gen ed classes in college shouldn't have covered all of this. If there's actually something of substance.
Yeah.
Slightly on a different sort of line here. This is a question, can the rapid formation of coal beds, oil and natural gas assist in removing much of the heat produced?
Was that it? Was that our whole explanation?
Yeah, just this thing that's true and isn't a problem is a problem.
This thing that's true and isn't a problem. So what does that...
I mean, I guess it's a problem in that you have to account for it, but then once you have, then problem solved.
Yeah.
It's like saying, oh, we can't measure low temperatures because eventually your mercury in your thermometer will freeze. It's like, well, I know, that's why we have other ways to check for temperature.
Other tools? I don't.
Right.
But I guess we're going to talk about coal beds now?
I mean, maybe we'll get back to radiometric dating. I don't know.
Yeah, let's see.
But I do like the idea, rapid formation of coal is going to get rid of the, 30 orders of magnitude past which you've melted the globe. Okay, sure.
And not make more heat.
Right. Yeah. That's just sure. That's a. But you know what? Maybe these two will actually say, no, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Which would be the honest thing to say.
Because basically the argument here is rapid formation of coal beds. That's a bonkers idea to begin with. But two, listen, this house is on fire, right? There's a heat problem, right? There's all this energy here. You know what I bet would help? What if we lit the neighbor's house on fire, right? That's what if we added more heat?
Yeah.
Ow, how does that help?
Turn the stove on quick.
Turn the stove on, yeah.
During the global flood. This is that old question about, the heat problem, the accelerated radioactive decay and whatever.
Yeah. You'll find that all chemical reactions either give off heat or they absorb heat, or the structures produce themselves will take up the heat and convert it either into pressure or they'll convert it into movement. So despite the claim that the world would have got too hot, this is in the ignorance, not the absence, but in the ignorance of other mechanisms that can convert heat into other things.
Name
what
them.
Mechanism in particular?
Yeah, we know hypercanes aren't going to. We know the mantle can't do it until the surface of the Earth is already hotter than the mantle.
Right.
I mean,
so it's by what mechanism? You say there's a mechanism, right? Listen, I've got a solid understanding of planetary formation, geophysics, heat transfer, right? I understand these things. What is siphoning all of that energy off the surface of the Earth so that it doesn't melt?
Well, if he doesn't specify one, then you can't prove that the one he hasn't specified is wrong.
Yeah, because that's
That's-
like
that's what
I
this is
certainly
coming down to.
agree that heat would eventually dissipate, right? It wouldn't have by now.
No, the Earth would still, at the very least, be just a ball of molten rock,
Right.
if not plasma.
So this isn't I'm not ignorant of how planetary bodies exchange heat with space, right?
Right.
Or move heat around itself, right? I am certainly not ignorant of that. So by what mechanism
Right.
was this heat lost to space? Because just radiation doesn't get it. It doesn't get you there in the time scale that you need. It gets you there eventually, but
Yeah, in a
not,
few
not
billion
on
years.
your time scale. The problem is their time scale.
Right. And the thing is, everything that I've seen, it's like, oh, here's a heat mitigation option. It's like, even if we give you optimum conditions, that this is working at maximum efficiency globally,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, well, out of your like 30 orders of magnitude too high problem, you knocked off a couple orders of magnitude at best. It's like, well, okay, but can you see why that isn't really sufficient?
Right.
Even if you combine all of them, you're still like melting the Earth a few times over, which even if you do it once, that's a bit of a problem.
Yeah. Okay. Let's listen to him make fun of me for a little while longer.
Okay.
Now, you ought to be able to remember from primary school where your brother would get you. You poor innocent young girl with long pigtails, he'd get your hand and he'd do a Chinese rope burn. Now, all he's doing is actually moving his hand around you, but that movement translates into heat.
Yeah, we know what friction is, my guy.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the point is here.
So, yeah, how is that a process that dissipates heat?
That's converting kinetic energy into thermal energy, which is the opposite of what you need.
You need thermal energy converted into kinetic energy or any other type of energy.
Right. Chemical, electromagnetic, something.
Now, you haven't destroyed the arm, you haven't done anything, but you've actually removed energy. And you'll find the same sort of mechanism.
No, you haven't removed energy from
You've
the arm.
added energy to the arm.
Yeah, you added energy because you transferred the kinetic energy of your hand going like this, right, of this motion, right? That takes energy. You're burning calories, right, to move your hand. And then you're transferring that energy over here
as thermal energy.
As thermal energy.
And so is his whole thing just a sign error? Maybe all of John McKay's craziness can just be explained because he can't keep track of his signs. Like plus and minus is just a lost concept on him.
Yeah.
That would explain this. The only way for him to say that this is a mechanism to remove heat is if he's bad at keeping track of positive versus negative numbers. That's
fair. Yeah. And you know what? Hey,
I've made sign errors before.
I make sign errors all the time. This is another reason why I don't like to answer, like, left to my own devices. I am just, this dyslexic enough that like I'll flip left and right, I'll flip east and west, right? This happens to me a lot, and it's embarrassing, but like people correct me and we move on, you know, and I know I do that.
Well, an important part is the ability to sanity check, which is I think a big part of what like science education is for. It's like when you answer, you should, if you're well trained, you should have a sense of whether or not that answer is within the realm of possibility. And if you made a sign error, it's going to immediately jump out as like, no, that can't be right. But apparently John McKay isn't at that point where he can be like, oh, yeah, no, that doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
He's just going to carry that sign error forward and get the final answer and be like, meh, looks good to me.
Looks good to me. Yeah.
Mechanisms, not just the heat itself, but the heat converts into all sorts of other things, chemical reactions, exothermic, endothermic, movement of rocks, etc. We actually watched one day a dike form as the water underneath our stratosphere just took off for reasons unknown to us, straight up through the sediments above. Now, that represents energy, represents movement, but it was all happening in the liquid.
So is he saying that enough chemical reactions that result in that absorb heat and enough rocks moved that we're going to absorb this melting the planet level, vaporizing the planet. I'm sorry, vaporizing the levels of heat, just because rocks moved.
I think that's what he's saying. But like the problem is that when those rocks move, they're generating friction.
Right. I
You know?
tell you what, there, John. I look forward to your mathematical trace on how it is that you're going to get rock movement to take away the heat problem with rigorous mathematics. I look forward to that because
listen, I don't even need rigorous mathematics. Just give me a back the napkin calculation, right? Like, what's a factor of 10 between friends? You know, just get me in the ballpark. Get me within an order of magnitude. You know.
Yeah.
And then
sure.
Yeah, that would make me so happy.
Instead, we get this very, very vague stuff.
Right. Also,
and remember the rate beam. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Icarus points out here converts into all kinds of reactions: exothermic, endothermic.
Right. Those two things are opposite.
Words. Those are the opposite. So
it can only convert into
effects.
Right. If you're causing both of those, then at like a first level approximation, they're going to roughly cancel out. You have to have a whole lot more. It's endothermic, right? That's absorbing the heat, right?
Yeah. So you need a whole lot of endothermic reactions going on. And so like
but you're actually going to get a whole lot of exothermic probably.
Yeah. So please explain to me a reaction, right? What chemical reaction that occurs naturally on Earth or in its atmosphere, right? That absorbs heat and keeps it. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, because you're gonna you're gonna basically just convect it away immediately. And when I say immediately, I mean on the time scale over a year, yeah, you're gonna lose that heat absorption capacity.
Yeah. So like if we're talking about like exchanging energy, sure, right? Like
some of it's gonna end up in a chemical bond, yeah.
Some of it's gonna end up in a chemical bond, but like so often what that's going to do is like that might kick, if you add energy to a chemical system, that might kick off a chain reaction, but that also like generally that's unstable. Anyway, and
plus you're going to get to temperatures that are going to break down those chemical bonds that were just absorbing your heat anyway. And then you know what happens when chemical bonds that absorb heat break?
That heat is
releases the heat.
Right.
It's almost like the energy doesn't just disappear into the atom.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know what this guy is saying. I don't understand his point.
Itself, and it produced this massive structure that we would have said that's a sedimentary dye. Must have been, yes. All the theories went out the window.
What?
Oh, would love to see your paper on that, my guy.
So because you watched a sedimentary formation form quickly, which by the way, I highly doubt it lithified, but we'll just leave that aside.
Yeah.
Therefore, all sedimentary structures can form rapidly. That's one of those things that we call a non sequitur.
Yeah.
And I love the smug look. He's like, ha, I watched a big thing happen once. It happened fast. Therefore, science is wrong now.
Right. Like, dude, if you've got a paper on that, I would love to read it. You know, if you had this like apparently very strange, right, rock formation process that you happened to observe, that's really cool, right?
Yeah.
So I'd love
to see
the literature on it.
It's like Ian Juby's fresh out of the supermarket level unfossilized dinosaurs that he found in Alaska that we haven't had any details on in 30 years.
Yeah. It's like, cool story, bro. But yeah. Okay.
I like the creation myths is Duncan on the hat etiquette, and he is correct about it. Hats are an outdoor accessory.
Correct.
Maybe he has a really, really bad skin condition on his scalp, and he's just covering it up. That's a good reason.
That could be true. I do like that his hat matches his vest, though.
I think that's an intentional ensemble.
I think it's an ensemble. Yeah. And I mean, like, I get it. Like, good costume. Cool geology costume, my guy.
Yeah, it makes him look like, like Dr. Grant from Jurassic Park or something, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he just got off the dig, which for some reason unearthed a Velociraptor mongoliensis in Montana. You know what mongoliensis means?
From Mongolia.
Yes. Sorry, Jurassic Park, but I'm going to hate on you just a little bit for that one.
Yeah.
which
Okay.
isn't fair, but whatever.
And
Sorry, let's see.
and we know from experiments, John, that have been done by the CSIRO on oil formation, and many others have done experiments on coal as well, that it takes roughly 350 to 400 degrees Celsius to actually create that oil. So, yeah, so the formation of the oil.
Can I interrupt you there?
Yep.
What they're doing there is taking the organic chemist and making oil the way he does. Right now, if you do what we've done, you simply, like we've run lots of experiments. You'll see some of them listed on our website, in which you actually take what's actually in the real world. So that if I go and I look at a coal field, which is my special area of interest, I find that the best quality coal, and I gave a paper on this to the Sydney Coal Basin Conference, right? Because our best coal has a certain percentage of high grade kaolin, fine microscopic clay scattered throughout it. You see, if you get too much clay, the coal, it ruins your sort of burning equipment you want to put in it. But if you actually have this stuff microscopically spread through it, it acts as a catalyst and it gets to coal without even being heat. You say, how do you know that? The answer is we use clay in pottery. And clay is used because it has one interesting property.
I'm going to let him finish this thought, and then I'm going to try to piece together what he said.
Yeah, I have no idea.
As you cook it higher and higher, you know, that soft white clay, all of a sudden it goes hard. And you can put it on the side and leave it, and it won't go back to being soft. So clay has an irreversible structure change as you raise the temperature. Now, the case of the clay that's in the coal, it's about 200 degrees. So I'll be brutally blunt. That clay that's in the coal tells us it has never been as hot as all the local flood experts want it to produce this vast amount of heat. It's a catalyzed reaction. And the same is true for the oil and the gas. We have made all three using simple clay experiments with no temperature emissions.
Okay. So
I don't understand the point.
I don't understand the point. My understanding of what he just said is that there are clays in coal fields, and the state of that clay indicates that it has never gone above a certain temperature.
Right. That's also what I got.
Not being a geologist, right? I can that sounds fairly reasonable to me. That doesn't sound off the wall. You know, there's certainly you could know that oh, hey, this thing has a melting point of this temperature. So if you see it, you know what I mean? Yeah.
I just don't know why that is relevant to the heat problem or radiometric dating, or it's just okay, I'll just accept it. And
yeah, but I actually think what he's saying is that there is no evidence that there was this much heat. Therefore, there wasn't that much heat. Great, awesome.
Or there wasn't a flood. Okay.
There wasn't a flood, or therefore there wasn't. But I think where he's stopping is therefore there couldn't have been accelerated radioactive decay.
I mean, I agree with him on that.
Yeah,
but that just means that therefore the flood story doesn't explain geology.
Exactly.
But I think he's just going to stop at therefore there is no heat problem. So let's stop worrying about it.
I think that's where he's stopping. I think that there's no record of a heat problem in the geologic record. Therefore, there can't be a heat problem. True.
Yep. True.
What's the next step?
The next step is therefore the flood wouldn't cause one. The next step is therefore the flood didn't happen, not the flood didn't cause it, because you need the flood to cause the heat problem.
Right.
Let's not forget, the heat problem is a solution to the radiometric decay problem, right?
Right.
Yeah. Creationist, it's partially that. It's also partially a result of just the ridiculous energies required for the events in the flood, as described by young Earth creationists. That's part of the heat problem. The other part is this is proposed, accelerated decay is proposed as a mechanism to explain away the really old ages we get from radiometric dating. Because even creationists know that if you actually hold radiometric decay rates steady, there is not enough weird stuff like unaccounted for xenoliths and contamination you can dismiss the old ages.
Mhm.
The rocks have to have undergone 4.5 billion years at the oldest worth of radiometric decay, because that's how much radiometric decay is evident in the rocks. So people like the rate team suggest, well, maybe it happened faster during or maybe even before the flood. And then you say, okay, but now you have billions of years worth of thermal energy from this decay being pumped into the planet in a far smaller time scale. This generates heat, because when radioactive decay comes out, now you have, essentially kinetic energy from these various massive particles, or just straight up electromagnetic energy from the photons being released. When they strike things, which they will, that gets turned into thermal energy ultimately. Okay, we can calculate how much that is. It's a problem. You solved a problem. Great, that's fine. You now have to solve another problem. And saying, well, the evidence of this problem existing doesn't exist, just means your initial solution doesn't work. You have to account for the decay some other way.
Right. Absolutely. So yeah, like Mr. McKay there, if the problem then reverts back to, so what do you do with billions of years worth of radioactive decay, right? Where did that go? And that's like, I hate to break it to you, but it's the burden is on, like there exists a naturalistic explanation for that, right? And that is that the Earth is just billions of years old. That it happened over billions of years, and that answer fits the observational data. So if you say that it couldn't have been billions of years, you guys, over in the young Earth creationist land, you have to account for that, right? You have to account for these minerals look old, right?
Yeah.
And you got to give an answer.
He's basically doing the equivalent of like me saying, oh, hey, I just got rid of an elephant visits my yard every day to eat the leaves off the trees. And you come over and you say, well, okay, but you never say that you have to deal with any elephant droppings, and there are none around. And I say, well, I guess the elephants just don't poop then. And that's my excuse.
Right.
No, that's not the first thing you jump to.
It's not the first thing you jump to.
Maybe there just isn't an elephant.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a crazy man.
That's a possibility.
Yeah, a much more likely possibility than that elephants just don't poop, which is a thing we observe them doing all the time.
All the time.
Because basically, he has to be saying, oh, radioactive decay? Pff, that doesn't cause heat. Well, I have this thing called a nuclear reactor that I would like to introduce you there, John McKay. Its whole point is to get hot as a result of nuclear decay.
Yeah. So, hey, team, I need to get a little bit more water. So I think Dapper and I are going to take a quick intermission, courtesy of your intermission video.
You're welcome. I had fun doing it.
It's really cool. Okay, so we will be back in just a couple minutes. Take this time to hydrate or dihydrate. Okay. Oh, yes. Okay, great. I'm not muted. Dapper, did you make it back?
Of course I did.
Okay. Excellent. Fun fatal flaw in that plan is it mutes our mics.
Well, that's what the internal chat is for. You just say, "Oh, back," and then
Okay.
I would say back.
Okay.
Yeah, but fortunately, it all worked out, and we were back within seconds of each other.
In seconds.
That's because we're professionals and we're good at this.
We're so good at this. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Actually, you're about to be a professional. Was it like 200 more hours?
Oh, yeah. It's 400 more hours last time I checked.
I'm sure it's down to 200 now.
Hopefully. That would be great.
Hey, everybody, put Maddie's videos on loop.
Yeah, if you guys can play these in the background, my just past live streams playlist, just mute it. It's fine. I'm like this close on watch hours to monetization.
Mute it on your computer if you can, though, not on YouTube, because sometimes YouTube can do things like pay attention to who's muting what and whether or not it should count as full hours and whatnot. So
jerks.
if that's possible, yeah, I know, right? Imagine them trying to make it so you can't game the system as easily. Those dicks.
Yeah. Listen, I put out short videos most of the time because according to like brain science, that's like the people, their attention span for learning a new concept is short. So I try to make my Weather 101 videos like 5 minutes.
YouTube doesn't care how well your audience is learning. They care how much time their eyeballs are glued to their TV or computer with your content. That's all they care about.
I know.
It's all about the eyeballs.
It's all about the eyeballs.
Or the earballs.
And the ear, yes. All right, so let's let this guy be smug again. Let's see what happens.
Okay.
Also, McQueen went away.
I think they have it set up so they can only have like 3 people on or something like that. Because there was only ever 3 people there, but then maybe he'd go away. I hope he's okay.
Of any great significance at all.
So what about all those dating methods for rocks?
What?
I answered this question in my Crevo rant number 100.
Why did we just cut to Ian Juby? I did not sign up for Ian Juby, Maddie. Not at all.
Neither did I.
Okay, as long as it's a blindside for you two.
This was a blindside for me.
And I like how McQueen and McKay answered nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then just like, well, let's cut to Juby now. Okay.
Yeah.
And he's...
I agree. We're back to casual sexism.
With how to get a date?
We're going to make that joke again. And it's
I'm pretty sure that this is going to get to casual sexism. But I'm going to say this setup so far isn't necessarily casual sexism. I'm not going to wait to drink until it actually is.
Okay, you're right. It's like the cringiest version of dad jokes.
Right. So far. It might go to... Look, I have a very high confidence that it will go to casual sexism, but it hasn't quite yet, to be fair, because lots of people try to get dates of various sexes, genders, and combinations.
All right, let's see Juby.
Hey, everyone. I got a written request in from Isaac in Indiana who wrote in, "Hey, Ian, can you please do a rant on dating methods?" Sure, Isaac, I'm glad to help you out there. As you know, I'm personally still a Christian guy looking for a young Christian lady. My favorite dating method is ChristianCafe.com, the online Christian dating site. Go there, you can fill out a profile, you can let the computer do a match for you, or you can do your own searches. I'm actually
going to say that
and, maybe write the latest.
Casually sexist. That's just like go to this dating site and using dating as a joke. So I'm going to say that this doesn't actually seem to be going into a casually sexist area. Good job. You've barely met so far the minimum that I expect of humans.
Yeah.
So far, so good.
You have higher expectations than I do. I fully expect sexism.
Oh no, it's not my expectations. It's my minimum behavior standards. There's a difference.
Oh, I see. I
expect people to fall below my minimum standards for human behavior.
Yeah.
He just isn't currently.
Have I told you? I've had an epiphany, Dapper. I've had an epiphany. And this has to do with sometimes the other women in my graduate program, they get very angry when sexism happens, which I'm
you don't say.
You don't say. Well, it's also kind of like I mean, I get it. That's a thing that kind of sucks, but like, I think they don't expect it to happen is the point. That was my epiphany. They're like, oh,
well, this is a surprise for you.
This is a surprise for you, and that's why you're angry.
Got it.
Because like, don't get me wrong, like sexism in general makes me angry, but if I got angry every single time somebody was sexist in my direction, all I would do is be angry all the time, and that doesn't sound nice.
That's bad for your health.
That seems bad for my health. So
you would have had a heart attack by now.
I would be dead. If I got angry in the Navy every time somebody was sexist, I would just be dead.
My goodness.
Oh my goodness.
Look, if I just every time someone was shitty in any way, and like you wouldn't make it a month.
Right, you would just keel over aneurysm.
Yeah, whether it's sexist, ageist, homophobic, just being a general dick.
Just being an asshole, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
A letter saying, "Hey, how about you and I do Tim Hortons?" So, and you could.
The very Canadian.
What do you mean you don't think that's what he's talking about? Isaac, what? He wants to date a rock? I don't think I can help him much. Oh, you mean like get an age of a rock, like radio dating methods? Oh, yeah, I can help you out with that too, Isaac. Isaac is referring to radio dating methods. Now, this is a really complicated subject, so you're going to want to put on your thinking cap. Now, for you conspiracy theorists out there, a good quality thinking cap should fit comfortably underneath your tinfoil hat. However, if I may make a suggestion, not only does it guard against EMF, EMP.
He just put out a pot. A characteristic of a particular D&D character that I'm aware of, Murphy, the Goblin Bard, who uses a pot on his head and a wooden spoon as his instrument. And speaking of which, Maddie and I play D&D every other week on Cheshire Vic's channel. And guess whose character Murphy is? Cheshire Vic's.
Cheshire Vic's. Well, not in our game, in another game.
Not in our game, no. Although I suspect that if Calypso ever dies, Murphy may well make an appearance as the Goblin Bard. So I'm okay with calling him Murphy. Well, I'm only kind of okay with it because again, that's not something he's okay with me calling him as far as I know. So I'm okay with doing it jokingly a little bit, but I'm not going to continuously call him Murphy.
Also, I would like to point out that this is an edited video. Mm-hmm. We're choosing to leave in that comedy sketch.
Yeah, Standing has consciously decided. Well, actually, I'm actually not that sure that he's consciously deciding. He might have just been so lazy that he couldn't be bothered to actually, scan through the timeline, hit the cut button, and delete the previous clip. Like that might have been the 3 button presses too far for him.
It's a lot of button presses.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see if this gets to a point. That would be fun.
Unwanted government mind-reading technologies. It also doubles as a hard hat. Radio dating methods are based on radioactive decay. For example, uranium is a radioactive element. True. It's so heavy it's actually a little out of balance. So every once in a while it throws a particle off.
I wouldn't call it out of balance.
I don't mind that. I don't mind that as a way, like, this is how I would explain this to my, 6-year-old cousin, right? Because that number of nucleons being inherently unstable over long time periods is a much harder concept. And yes, no, it's not the weight, it's the... I don't know. What do you think, Dapper?
Well, so... Oh, I think I'm alone. Bye, Maddie. So I guess I'll continue. It's not the weight necessarily, but the thing is that as your atomic number, or not atomic, but as your nuclear mass. Oh, hey. So basically, as the number of nucleons goes up, the forces between them start to, on average, go down between any nucleon and the rest of the nucleus, and that's because basically the strong nuclear force has a fall off, and so you can kind of think of it as basically the strong nuclear force proportionally to each nucleon starts getting weaker and weaker as you add more of them. And that adding more of them is going to be proportional to the weight, although it's not technically the mass that's causing the problem. It's not like they're falling off because of gravity, but because the weight and the number of nucleons are inherently tied, It's not really super wrong to say it's because they're too heavy, because they ultimately all the radioactive isotopes are heavier than the stable things are going to decay into. I think an analogy I might use is like, let's say that you wanted to have like a whole bunch of people who are going to like hang off of like a bridge, but some of them are going to have to hang off of each other.
Mhm.
And eventually, if you have enough people trying to hang onto a bridge, and there's only like so many of them who can actually grab the bridge itself, some of them are going to drop off every once in a while. How are you going to know when? Well, it's going to be a little bit random if you can't check with every single person all the time.
Mhm.
And so, sometimes they'll break off, and eventually, maybe there will be a low enough number that they can just kind of cling there, and it'll be okay. I wouldn't use a balance thing, because there's not like a side that is the wrong side of the nucleus to be on or something. And yeah, I know I'm using gravity with that analogy where it's actually the strong nuclear force, but
Yeah.
the strong nuclear force is still a force, and the force that the nucleons are resisting is the electromagnetic force, right? Because protons without the strong nuclear force would not want to hang out with each other.
Right.
So
I guess the way that I used to try to explain strong nuclear force and the competition between strong nuclear force and electromagnetic force, I can use words.
Yay, words.
Was that think of the strong nuclear force as Superman, but electromagnetic force like Mr. Fantastic. Superman is stronger, but he is limited by his arms aren't infinite. And so if you're having things that Superman is trying to hold together, but Mr. Fantastic is trying to pull apart, well, Mr. Fantastic can get his arms on more things because he can stretch. If that's
Also, Dr. Dan's calling me out for dark analogies. I'm okay with dark analogies.
that's
Look,
your analogy did not even register in my brain as dark, and that's what happens when you get two Navy veterans in the room.
Look, we like our analogies like we like our coffee. Black.
And bitter.
Yeah. Although actually I do like to add a little bit of a splash of milk. So
yeah, well, it's because you're out of the Navy now.
That's true. But also because it helps with the heartburn.
Yeah.
That is the ultimate reason. Is because coffee gives me heartburn, and I'm just like a little bit of milk, and it just way less.
Excellent. And Liam is right. Juby is aiming his explanation at young kids.
Yeah, that's fair.
So this isn't precise, but I don't mind it if his audience is elementary, like early elementary.
Yeah.
And
like I said, it actually didn't end up going sexist with the dating analogy. So
right. So Juby here is just beating all of my expectations.
Yes. And he's meeting the bar of my minimum standards, but he is also beating my expectations.
There you go.
This is called radiation. Now, uranium-238, for example, then turns into thorium-234. Thorium is the daughter element. But thorium is also heavy and unstable, so eventually it throws off a particle and turns into protactinium. Protactinium is also unstable, throws a particle off, and turns into another form of uranium, which then turns into another form of thorium, etc., etc. Eventually, all of this breaks down into lead, which is a stable element and doesn't turn into anything else.
Yeah.
We can measure in a lab how long it takes for each of these breakdowns to occur. So, theoretically, we can take a look at a rock, examine the ratio of parent to daughter radioactive elements, and get a rough time scale and even be able to guess as to how old that rock is.
Yes.
Except for the use of the word guess, I would agree.
Yeah, except for the use of the word guess there, but this is the
surprisingly good.
Surprisingly good. Yeah. Again, especially for the audience that would think his pot is funny, right?
Well, I mean, even if I was to explain like the radioactive decay chain, I don't, for like a lay audience that isn't familiar with terms like, oh, well, this is going to alpha decay into this, and then there's going to be a beta plus decay into like, okay, because most people aren't going to know all that stuff and haven't looked at that like huge like isotopic decay chart where it has the most likely decay on like one little area, and then like what that result is going to be. Because no one's looked at that. Like you've looked at that, I've looked at that, but most people haven't.
Yeah.
So that is basically how I would explain the decay chain of, U-235 or 238 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So good job, Juby.
Good job, GB.
Now let's hear you ruin it.
But these radio dating methods invariably give ages of millions to billions of years.
Yep.
The Bible says the earth is only
Oh,
6,000
no.
years old. So do these radio dating methods contradict the biblical account of creation and the age of the earth? In
Hold on
short,
one second.
no.
I actually agree with that conclusion because I don't actually think that it's obligatory to read the Bible as requiring a 6,000-year-old Earth.
Yeah,
But
that's
I don't
certainly
think-
not how I read the Bible.
I don't think that's how Ian Juby is gonna take this. No, I think he's gonna take it to a different location than where you and I might, which is to say,
Right.
yeah, you just don't have to read the Bible like a dummy.
Therefore, don't be a mythic literalist.
Right.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Yay!
Yeah. All right, Juby, are you going to ruin it?
Of course he is.
Take, for example, the UN Carrot lava flows which flowed into Grand Canyon. These rocks were dated using a battery of radio dating tests. 6 different potassium argon tests were run, getting ages of between 10,000 years old to 117 million years old. 5 rubidium strontium tests said the rocks were actually 1.27 billion years old to 1.39 billion years old.
That 1.7 to 1.39, like, that's not a large range there. Okay.
Well, he's
The
gonna say
lead
that
dating method said the rocks were in fact 2.6 billion years old. Rubidium strontium isochron method said that no, the rocks were actually 1.34 billion years old. Rubidium strontium isochron is supposed to be the holy grail of radio dating methods, not only to ascertain the age of a rock, but actually able to give us an indication of how accurate the age is, or if the rock has been contaminated. So which age is the correct age? We have a spread of ages different by a factor of 206.
Okay, well, let's take a look at that for a quick second. One, you put rubidium strontium, and then rubidium strontium isochron, and those both give the same age, right?
Yeah.
It's
I also noticed that he stopped giving us age ranges in the last two,
right,
which is concerning.
the lead, but I don't know if lead is appropriate for that type of rock. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, here's my biggest problem.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where this is from.
Right. That's the other
How
thing.
would I check on this? You're just saying it.
Right.
Like, at least if someone's like, "Oh, the rate team found," I can think, "Okay, well, the rate publication is available."
Right.
Like, who dated this? When did they do it? What techniques were used? Where did they publish it? I don't know, because the thing is, I would love to check up on this, because what it looks like to me is you've got probably 3 dates, which, depending on the error of margin of error, might actually all be concordant,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you've got 1 that's anomalous.
Right.
Okay, well, that's weird, but can we look at anything, or can we say, oh, hey, how was, actual inclusions of xenocrysts and such things excluded? Was it?
Mm-hmm.
What was the equipment that was used? Has it have any problems that we know of for giving anomalous ages, but in certain date ranges, which does happen? I mean,
Yeah.
instead we're just getting, hey, 3 dates which actually don't seem to be obviously discordant, and then 1 anomalously young age and no citation. I don't know what to do with that other than say, great, man, show your work.
Yeah, that's like, that's interesting that you got that spread of dates. Like, let's figure out why. Where's the original? What's your source?
Right.
Because without that, I can't have more of a conversation about this.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know what to, there's just nothing to say about it.
Right.
60,000. Well, rubidium strontium isochron is supposed to be the most accurate of the methods, so let's go with that age. Oh, did I mention that there's Indian artifacts in the lava flows? Therefore, we know the lava is actually 800 to 1,000 years old.
Well, then none of those dating methods were appropriate.
Actually, the top one might have actually been
Yeah.
That actually might have been reasonable, because, like I said, very young rocks will tend to return older ages just as a result of like residual gases in test chambers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that just sounds to me like, first, I actually don't know if it's true that there are artifacts, so
Right.
it's another citation needed. Yeah, there's a reason I made that little video clip.
That's a great video clip.
It's so much. By the way, it's a GIF. If you like are on a GIF keyboard and you search citation needed Dapper Dino, it'll come up.
Nice.
So you can use it on Twitter or Facebook or whatever.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, enough self-aggrandizing for things that don't even make me anything. Yeah, so let's just say that there are artifacts, and so we know that it's less old. It has to be at least as old and not much old, and not older than the artifact. Okay, that's fair. That just probably means that your isochron plot probably actually wasn't linear, although it's going to return an age anyway. And your other methods are probably as a result of the inclusion of older minerals in the rocks.
Right.
But without a citation, I can't check, because the thing is, let's say that isn't the case. Let's say you actually did absolutely perfect methodology on everything, all flawless methods.
Right.
That'd be pretty significant.
Yeah.
And it would go a long way towards me saying, oh, well, I guess radiometric dating has some serious problems that I didn't think it had.
Right.
So let's actually, is it in the description?
Oh, of course it's not in the description. I will double check.
Let's check though. Let's show people whether or not it's in. Wait, why
I
is this?
don't know why we're
why is
getting
there
a flat Earth warning?
That's weird.
Let's find out.
Look, I'll say this: Standing doesn't know much, but he's not a flat earther. Okay, so that's just a YouTube video.
Make sure to watch right to the end.
Goodness, this is such a long description.
Oh, hey, this is about me.
Oh, look at that.
That's fun.
Well, look at that. He is basically subtweeting you.
Ah.
So sweet.
All right, thanks, dude.
Well, wait, was that the end? Because I didn't see the bottom of that. Were there any links? Because sometimes I put my sources at the very end. No. Okay. No. Music from the video. Okay, thanks, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, weird. Hey, hold on. I want to take a look at the video that I most recently uploaded.
Okay.
So give me a second.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to my screen? I might actually, yeah. Give me a second. I just have to get there, right? So let's see. Go to my content. I guess I can't do the most recent one because it's speculative evolution, and that doesn't have a lot of sources because, like, what would they be? Because it's all fiction. But give me a second. I need to find, what am I looking for? I think this is it. Okay. Let me zoom in on it, and then I will share my screen real quick. So let me just make it so that I can actually still see you while I'm doing this. Sorry, everybody. I know I'm doing this very unprofessionally. All right. So
sorry, I got a compliment on my hair. Thank you.
Nice.
I just re-greenified it and I love it.
Yeah, okay, share my screen. All right, so this is a video that is out now, I think. Yeah, okay. This is the one that I released early, accidentally. I did 132. Whoops.
Oh.
But yeah,
nice.
you'll notice that, like, there's a lot of stuff here. Now, I will grant you, it is not exactly as well labeled as I would love for it to be. But a lot of it, like, actual papers, all the way up through here. Then this is like I believe this is actually where a source that Dan Biddle used in this, which is why I'm including it, because I went and checked the source. And then this is actually a creationist source that was cited by Dan. It's weird how at the end of my description, you can click through and see some of the places where I got the information I used. Mm-hmm. Isn't that nice? It's a weird contrast.
Right?
That's all I wanted.
Yeah.
We're good now.
That's great. And I have to say, I often don't have a lot of sources on my videos, but like when I'm doing, like in my Weather 101 series, for example, the stuff I'm explaining, you can find on Wikipedia, right? This is common knowledge.
Right.
So like if it's common knowledge enough to be on Wikipedia, you generally don't have to cite a specific source. But like when I was reading through the IPCC report, I absolutely cited and provided links to the IPCC report.
And the thing is, it's not common knowledge that radiometric dating just doesn't work. So you're going to have to cite something.
Exactly.
Although I did know of someone who bothered to cite the idea that there were 7 Cs when they put the phrase the 7 Cs in a paper of theirs. And it was just like, I don't think that's entirely necessary, buddy.
I don't think it's necessary, but you know what? I would rather, that's the correct, that's how I'd like you to fail, right? I think it's important to think about like right, let's realize that we're never going to be perfect. So which side do we want our failure to fall on?
That's,
you know?
yeah. And also, I will say this, history classes, at least at my school, likes to give you page numbers for goals for your papers.
Okay.
They also used footnotes, which meant the more citations you put on a given page, the less text you had to write.
Mm-hmm.
So there were. Now, I'm not saying I did this entirely for that reason, but I definitely had a few papers where, for many pages, the majority of a page was actually the footnotes, and the actual text of the paper was the minority of that page. But that also actually happens in professional, like, history papers. So I don't feel too bad about it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see what else Ian Juby has to say. So I don't know. I think I'm going to skip through Ian Juby and get us back to standing.
But you don't want to see more of Ian with a pot on his head?
Not particularly.
Wait, is he now a pothead?
I don't know. Maybe. Wait, do we not?
Is it just Ian for the rest of
this?
this?
Is it just Ian?
Yeah, that's the closing animation.
Oh, all right. Well, never mind. I guess we got to watch Ian for a minute.
That's like the lazy. So you just stole a bunch of Ian Juby content to get your video out to 25 minutes, so you could throw. What is it? So we could throw more ad breaks in? Do you have an ad blocker on?
I actually don't have an ad break.
Okay, well then I'll take that back. It wasn't just to get more ad breaks.
I'm just gonna make it play at 1.5 speed. So.
Oops. This is certainly not an isolated case. A typical old Earth geologist will reply with contamination. Well, obviously we have the wrong answer, therefore the sample must have been contaminated. Wait a minute. That's shooting yourself in the foot.
No.
No.
The only reason you are claiming contamination is because we found out the actual age of the rock.
So the reason you suspect contamination would be an anomalously old date. Then you go and look to see if there's some contamination. And it's the kind of thing you can see. You can find it.
Yeah.
In fact, also, if the isochron date returned date, because the way isochron works is, right, you take several different samples of different kinds, and the way that the math works out on isochron dating is that these samples, once you plot them on daughter versus parent ratios, should line up on a roughly linear line, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they're significantly off of linear, it indicates contamination. And then you can, once again, look for it. So we have two reasons to look for contamination, but you don't just say contamination because you got an anomalous. You have to support that conclusion because you got to show your work in science. And if your work says contamination, people are going to want to see the contamination.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, Robert Monreal also points out could also be an inclusion. Those are all options.
Yep. And inclusion and contamination are different things, et cetera, so forth. But I think we've talked that to death.
Based on archaeology after the fact. How about all those rock layers that we can't verify the age of? That you've assigned an age of millions, perhaps billions of years to. How can we trust those ages? Bottom line is, we can't. In fact, multiple modern...
Yes, we can. Because...
One of the things... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, because the example he just showed, right, where we have all of these dates, and that we can't check the source, so I don't know if that's real. But in reality, when we check, when we date rocks, right, using completely independent methods, by and large, right, we get agreement.
Right.
So that's the thing is we do check. We use one type of dating, then another type of dating, and the normal result is that we're just getting more and more accurate, right? It is an anomaly to get disparate ages.
Yeah.
And that if you get disparate ages, that means you should ask another question.
Mm-hmm. Another thing you... Oh, sorry.
No, well, I was just going to say that, like, and while I am certainly, like, Ian Juby here seems to be, like, doing trying to do science communication for children, or young earth creationism communication for kids, right?
There you go,
so I don't know what his credentials are, so I don't strictly expect him to be able to, like, identify why those numbers he threw out feel super cherry-picked to me, right?
I'll point out another thing you can do to check to see if a date is anomalous is you can check it against other dated strata where you know, basically based on the law of superposition, you can say, okay, how old should this be? Now, if you have strata above and below, chances are someone has at least relatively dated those, and you can then correlate that relative dating in those strata to some other work that has given absolute dates.
Yeah.
So if you're finding, oh, hey, we have, a 4 million year old lava flow, And then we have another lava flow somewhere in the middle. And then below that, we have a 20 million year old lava flow. But then your middle lava flow is like 40 million years. You can say, hold up.
That doesn't seem right.
And then you can look into it to say, are there inclusions? Did I have contamination in my samples? What gives? Yeah. It's not just that we just like, oh, that's an old age. Let's just stamp it on there. It's good.
Right. That's like the age of the Earth, while generally accepted now, was like when people were first measuring it, there was a lot of like, no, it can't possibly be that old, right? Like that's, it wasn't as though we were like, all right, we've got to make, it wasn't like there were these evil atheists going, we've got to make sure that the Bible is wrong, so the Earth is going to be real old, right? Like that.
It was mostly Christians concluding the Earth was old.
Begrudgingly at that.
Yeah.
Right? It was like, yeah, and I'm devolving. I can't make words. Goodness.
You just haven't seen enough Star Trek. That'll help. Clearly. After this, just watch some Star Trek.
Okay. That sounds great.
Lava flows have been dated using radio dating methods, and invariably they came back with ages of millions to billions of years. Obviously, something is horribly, horribly wrong. And by claiming contamination after the fact, you just demonstrated how quickly and easily you are willing to reject your own date.
No, we're not claiming contamination after the fact. It's that date seems incorrect. Let's double check it. Like, yeah. That's all we're saying. And then you can't, like, I don't like that he's like being very accusatory at the camera right now. Like, I don't like this switch in rhetoric.
This whole thing is basically science is a liar sometimes.
Yeah. And so that's not real. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Based on the scientific methods of radio dating, which give rock solid ages.
It's radiometric, Ian.
Are the dating methods reliable or not? Talk about.
So that's like, is a thermometer reliable or not? If you're measuring in the range that thermometer can measure, right? But you wouldn't use like a kitchen thermometer to try to measure like how hot the sun is, or you know, like it's the wrong tool. You have to know when to use the right tool.
Wait, okay. So I shouldn't be using my meat thermometer to just place it outside to see what the temperature of the outside air is?
You could do that because that's in the same range.
Well, I don't know, man. I live in Arizona.
You probably shouldn't use your like mercury regular thermometer to measure your meat though, because that won't get hot enough. It should just break.
So that's why my meat's been tasting funny.
Yeah, getting a little extra mercury in your system.
Well, you know, I was eating fish anyway, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Shooting yourself in the foot.
Didn't he already do this bit?
He did all this bit, and I don't approve that we're teaching unsafe gun handling techniques to children.
Yeah. Look, one of the first rules of gun safety is don't ever point a gun at something you're not willing to actually shoot, which usually means if you don't have anything that you want to destroy around, point it at the dirt.
Yeah.
Who cares if you shoot the dirt? And the other option, if that isn't really realistic, is point it as high as you can.
Yeah.
Because that's not as safe as the dirt, but it's the next safest option.
Yeah. It's
never ever point a gun at yourself or any part of you.
Never point a gun at something you don't intend to shoot. That's like the number one rule of gun safety. The number two is that the gun is always loaded. I don't care if you just checked, the gun is always loaded.
Always it is loaded and there's a round in the chamber and that the safety is off.
Yeah.
Assume those things, no matter how untrue that might be in reality. If you just always think it's true, then you're going to be good.
Yeah. All right.
So, you know what, though? He is Canadian, so I bet Canadians aren't as keen on gun safety because there's just fewer guns.
Yeah.
But he did say that something important.
In fact, geologists really do pick and choose whatever dates they want.
That's not true at all. Citation needed. Jeez.
Oh, hold on. I got it.
Do it. Do it. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll send that video file to you later if you want.
I would appreciate that.
Okay.
Don't believe me? Just examine for yourself the radio dating history of the famous Skull 1470. I covered this in part 21 of Complete Creation. Or check out the notorious dating of the famous Mars rock ALH 84001.
Okay.
Look,
geologist Dr. Steve Austin from the Institute for Creation Research took
okay,
samples.
hold up a second. Juby might have left links to this. Standing, if you're going to include a clip of Juby telling you to go look at more Ian Juby videos, at least put the links to those videos in your description, buddy.
Yeah.
Bare minimum. You're stealing Juby's content in the first place because I'm assuming you didn't ask for his permission. Prove me wrong. I'm happy to be proved wrong about that. But even if you're going to steal his content, at the very least, have the basic decency to link to what he's talking about so that your audience can get the context that Juby is assuming that you're able to get.
Mm-hmm.
It's just basic courtesy, and it's not even basic courtesy to someone you disagree with. You're you're pushing Juby.
Yeah.
Help him help you by linking to his damn videos, man. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's just like the basics of how to YouTube.
It is. It is. It is.
Dome that formed in Mount St. Helens in 1986. He had them radio dated using the potassium argon dating method. He got
We know why that doesn't work.
ages of 340,000 to 2.8 million years old on rocks that were 10 years old. Well, Hanky and the folks
Oh
at the
my
No Answers
goodness.
Genesis website just
So, to the surprise of literally no one, when you tested rocks that are essentially zero, you got a non-zero age.
Oh no. Yeah. Gosh.
couldn't
You know,
contain
actually-
themselves, and they wrote, "Oh, I
Hold
love
on a
this."
second.
Considering that the half-life of potassium-40 is fairly
pause a
long, 1,250 million years,
Man,
the
can you
potassium argon
pause a
method
second?
can
I can. That's
So-
also not the half-life of potassium-40, but go on.
So there's actually a similar phenomenon that occurred, right?
Yeah.
So back during the earliest days where astronomy was really taking off with like telescopes and whatnot, and there was this idea, okay, what's the angular resolution or angular size of a star?
Ah.
And the first conclusion that people came to was, well, it looks like it's about like a half of an arc minute.
Okay.
And people were like, yeah, okay, that's what I get. But here's the problem. That's the angular resolution of the human eye. So what people were saying is they're so small that I can't tell how small they are, but people hadn't really measured the angular resolution of the human eye. And so they just gave the absolute minimum value that you could give using the human eye.
Yeah.
And then when we actually got better and better telescopes, we were like, no, we cannot actually get an image that's clear enough to actually really measure the angular diameter of these stars. And we now know, based on other math, we can actually calculate what they should be, but optically, they're always larger than that because they're so tiny. That's basically what Juby is doing. He's like, oh, look, it got this date. And I'm like, okay, what's the resolution of that? Oh, is it bigger than the date that you're actually trying to measure? I guess it's a useless technique then.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's like, you just don't know what the resolution of the technique you're using is.
Yeah. Sorry, I tried to live edit my description to have your link to your channel while you were talking, and I got an error, and then that
Because I yelled at Standing about it?
maybe. Well, no, I didn't words. It's just nice.
It is.
And I normally link you in the description when you're on. I just
Much
forgot to
appreciated.
do it beforehand,
That's-
so I will do that at the end.
Not a big deal. As long as it
Anyway.
gets there.
Yeah, it'll get there. All right. Let's listen to this guy read from, I think, the rate team is what he's reading from.
The rate team that
Yeah,
concluded that
we
we have no
that are much
solution.
younger than 6,000 years old.
Yeah.
A few thousand years are not enough time for argon-40 to accumulate in a sample at high enough concentrations to be detected and quantified.
That's factual.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what it is a long
Did these
enough time
guys
for,
stop to
though?
think before they wrote?
Residual argon in the test chamber.
Residual argon in the test chamber. Yeah. Let's see what he's like laughing at us. So let's see what he has to say.
Did they not realize that they just admitted in print that if the Earth is only 6,000 years old, that their radio dating methods will give a wrong, incorrect age of millions, perhaps billions of years? Did they?
Okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah, kind of. It
Yeah.
would.
So let's talk about this. Let's talk about what will we, Dapper, let's think about this. What would we expect to see? So if the Earth was really 6,000 years old, let's just
Mhm.
assume that is true. And we went to radiometrically date a rock, right?
And we're assuming no omphalism, right? Like God didn't just pretend there was a bunch of radioactive decay.
Right. No. I'm not going to assume that like perceived age thing, right? That's
Okay.
like that's like the rock formed, like a rock that like all rocks formed like we understand rocks to form, right?
Okay.
So if we're looking at like the minerals in a zircon, right? Our same assumptions, right?
Yeah. I would expect that basically all radiometric dates would return something, depending on their half-life, from several 100,000 to a few million years, maybe even like a good fraction of a billion years.
Yeah.
Just based on error bars, potential contamination, stuff like that. But I would expect none of them to go significantly beyond that. Like, we wouldn't be getting back a 2 billion year old age. We probably wouldn't even be getting back like on something that has like a normal error bar of like, a few million years. We just wouldn't even be getting something most likely that's like 30 or 40 billion years.
Yeah.
Because the thing you got to remember, sorry.
Well, what I was going to say, this is what I would expect. I would expect all dates, so anything with a half-life greater than 6,000 years, right? So like uranium, lead, potassium, argon, strontium, rubidium, right? All of those have longer half-lives. I would expect to get an answer that looks like less than one half-life has occurred.
Yeah.
Right? That kind of would be my expectation. And so I don't know what the exact number would change, right? But it should always be like less than one half-life should always be my answer.
Regardless of inclusions.
Exactly.
Right. The thing that is weird for me is the fact that we have these inclusions that give anomalously old dates isn't because radiometric dating doesn't work. It's because we have objects that are that old.
Exactly.
You included it in your sample.
Yeah, so you include something old in your sample. So the other thing that I would expect is I would expect effectively no agreement between my different dating methods, because they should all be returning me a number based off of their half-life. Right?
Well, that would probably still give you like the correct answer is somewhere within the margin of error.
Yeah.
Of all of them, but they wouldn't be highly concordant outside of just you're getting the right answer within that margin of error.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah.
That's so like the fact that we get highly concordant dates when we use appropriate tools, right? Yeah. I don't know how you get that if the Earth is actually young. Does that make sense? Like, I don't.
Yeah, the fact that we get these concordant and old dates doesn't make sense unless God is just lying to us.
Right.
Which I can't say that, like, I can disprove that.
No, I certainly can't.
My response is, okay, but I want you to think about what that does to your theology and epistemology, because it's not good.
Right. No, but that moves out of a discussion of science and into a discussion of theology.
Yeah.
And I would be perfectly comfortable having a conversation with young Earth creationists. And if the point that we came to, right, was yes, all of our dating methods, no matter how we look at the age of the Earth, the age of the universe, the age of the solar system, kind of no matter what we look at, we see these old ages, right? And we see things that look old. And exactly, Liam Wakefield, last Thursdayism.
Yeah, it's the inevitable conclusion.
It's the inevitable conclusion. And so if the young Earth creationist then says, well, it must be last Thursdayism, right? They're certainly right that I can't prove that things weren't supernaturally made to appear old. I can't do that because science does not deal with the supernatural. Right. But I would be pretty comfortable reaching that position, because it starts to break down what I view as the real danger of young Earth creationism, which is anti-science, right? Yeah. Or distrust of science.
Well, another thing is, when you get to omphalism, which ultimately you can't distinguish it from last Thursdayism, which is, the universe was just created last Thursday de novo with the appearance of age, exactly. But from a functional standpoint, what is the difference between the universe that is 13.8 billion years old and the universe that was created exactly as if it were 13.8 billion years old last Thursday? And the answer is none. There is no difference. And so what good does it do to talk about the idea that it actually poofed into existence versus having the evident history that it does have? It's not a useful concept. So
Right.
if you're going to go that far into omphalism, then I'm just going to say, okay, whatever. The universe acts as if it's this old. It acts as if there's common descent. It acts as if the rocks are this old. So that's the useful history of the world. That's what we should go with.
That's what we should go with. And when we're thinking about science, right, and its usefulness to mankind, then, right, then let us do the science, right? And if that contradicts your faith, then recognize that that's a matter of faith for you to resolve, right? But the idea that this dangerous idea that every scientist on the planet is lying to you every chance they get is just not true. And I say this almost every one of these streams, and I'll say it again, because the majority of scientists are people of faith. The majority of people of faith accept science and accept the age of the earth and accept evolution, that these are things that happen.
Oh, and if you want to see something that's worse for your career as a scientist, it's hard to find anything that's worse than being caught deliberately misrepresenting the facts as a scientist.
Right, absolutely.
That would get can't come back from that.
Yeah, that would get you kicked out. Like nobody's going to trust your work ever. That's a great way to end your career. Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing that's dangerous in the younger creationist crowd, it's less science denialism, but it's more viewing there is a person or a set of individuals that are authorities, right? And everything that they say is right, and everything that anybody else says is wrong. And that mindset I also find is very, very dangerous, because it opens up that's the way to make an abusive relationship. You know, that's the way to allow institutional abuse. And so, please.
Can I also point out that the prevalence of creationists attempting to steer lay people who follow them to only looking at creationist sources and even using creationist search engines smacks way too much of information control, and it comes off as being very cult-like.
Right. Absolutely. 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 And so, like, you know, if you are younger creationists and if you don't like what we're saying, like that is just fine. You don't have to like me. It's okay. But I would really strongly encourage you, if what you believe is true, the evidence should support it, right? So go learn about it, and you know, hey, prove me wrong, right? But prove me wrong in like actually
in ways that actually work,
right? Prove me, play. You have to play by the science rules, right? I have to play by science rules, right? So if you want to make science claims, you have to play by science rules. And so that, like, do the research, get the degrees, put in the time, write the paper, and you can get your paper. If there's nothing wrong in it, even if it's overturning a paradigm, right? Every paper that's ever overturned a paradigm has been published in reputable journals. You know?
Yeah. Here's a tip though for step 1.
Yeah.
Read the style guidelines.
Yeah, it's a baseline. Read the style.
Yeah, because if you can't get the style guidelines right, no one's gonna even bother. Which I'm very confident is why Matt's paper that he submitted was rejected. I don't think they even got to the point of looking at the substance. I think they looked at all of the center all the center text, and they were like, "Nope, it's done."
Yeah, I mean, I can say if it never went to reviewers, then that's absolutely what happened.
I don't think it did. Look, I don't have a lot of inside sources in that, but I have had a little bit of inside sourcing on that, and it did not indicate to me that there was ever a review. It looks like it was immediately rejected. And I don't actually know for certain the reason, but if you don't follow the style guidelines, which it didn't, that's pretty much an automatic rejection.
Yeah.
It's the same thing in school, right? If your teacher says size 12 font Times New Roman and you do size 10 Arial, well, sorry, my dude, you didn't follow the rules.
Yeah, that's... Yeah.
Like that's the thing. That's the level that we're at with team standing.
Mm-hmm.
They cannot get past the hurdle of
the
formatting.
format. Right. That's like
they're so far behind the ball when it comes to scientific publication that hitting left a line is a bridge too far.
Yeah. So that's again, if you can, no one's going to censor you, right? If you can do the work, right? If you can do the work, you can get it published.
Heck, even if you can't, self-publish and challenge people.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you what, you did do that, and it turned out to be amazingly bad on the content, not even regardless of the horrendous formatting. And by the way, guys, truncated hyperlinks don't work in books.
No, honey, they don't.
If your hyperlink ends in an ellipsis, you need to figure out a new way to cite that source.
And you shouldn't, in general, in a written work, there shouldn't be a hyperlink.
No. A URL is okay if it's an online publication.
Yeah.
But don't make it a hyperlink. If it's blue and underlined in your text, that's a problem.
It's a problem. So
and like creationist says, all doesn't work in physical books. Exactly. I actually asked Standing that. I was like, hey man, how do I use the truncated hyperlinks in your book? And he was like, haha, you press them really hard. And I'm like, I didn't say it because I just gave up at that point, but I was thinking to myself, dude, I'm trying to give you a hint that maybe you should revise your method of citing sources. Yeah. I'm here to help.
Yeah, like there's everybody, we all have to follow the same rules because we have rules. This is how you cite sources. This is the accepted method, you know. And listen, man, LaTeX will do it for you. Just
right.
LaTeX is great.
You can automate this process.
You can automate this process. Also, so let's wrap up. I don't think I need to listen to Juby there make fun of my profession anymore. So let me sign off here with let's into the actual discussion, then we'll get into channel news stuff. With just a message to Standing. Standing, if you watch this and if you make it this far, hi, hello. Glad you're here. I don't know how this video was supposed to refute the questions that were posed in my last response video. I honestly don't, because it was no points were made, right?
Yeah.
Like at no point during, any of these clips did I see like, you said this is why that doesn't work, right? So if you could just give me the TLDR, right? Put it in that sentence, right? Put it in that format for me. You said X is untrue because, right? That would be great. That would be great because I didn't understand the point you were trying to make. All right. That's how I cool. So, Dapper, what's going on over at the Dapper Dinosaur channel?
There's actually a lot. So, let me see. So tomorrow, the next speculative evolution video is coming out.
Okay.
Saturday, I'm having a talk with Dr. Josh from Digital Hammurabi about Mesopotamian languages.
So cool.
On Monday, Dr. Dan is going to be on my channel debating Finding Truth, a Muslim creationist, about whether or not evolution can result in novel features. Then there's Kent with Bent on the 5th. The next episode of Revenge of the Biddle is on the 7th.
Nice.
Then I'm going to actually be out of the area for the next week. So there's going to be a Kent with Bent pre-recorded on the 12th. And then the final episode, I believe, of Revenge of the Biddle on the 14th. Probably nothing on the 16th. And then the next thing that I know I have scheduled is on the 30th. I should be having a Leaving Young Earth Creationism.
You got a busy month.
Well, it's going to be much, much busier than that because, there's going to be other stuff that fills that in.
Yeah.
So yeah, which also I don't know if there's going to be an Eric with Erica this month because it would normally be on the 12th, but I'm going to be out of town. So
And she just moved. So
yeah, so I might ask if she wants to do one on like the 19th or the 26th, or just skip it. Either way is fine with me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. So let's see. On my channel, so because school has gotten pretty intense, this semester is very much ramped up. I'm changing my release schedule. So what we're gonna have are Sundays, either a scripted edited video, so either a Weather 101 or another IPCC report. So people like that last IPCC report, I'm working on the script for the next one. Those just take some time. So we'll keep digging into like official statements about climate change and all that jazz. And then Wednesdays, my normal live streams at 7. And then Thursdays, starting tomorrow, instead of releasing another like Weather 101 video, I'm starting a series of shorts, which I'm very excited about. And the first one is all set to go for tomorrow. And these are shorts on a scientist you should have heard of. So just a very brief 1-minute little snapshot of some very cool scientists throughout history.
That you probably haven't heard of.
You probably haven't heard of. So the first one is going to be Alice Ball. So if you've never heard of Alice Ball, spend a minute on my short tomorrow and you'll learn about her. But yeah, so that's what I've got going on. I think, and I'm not going to review any more standing videos for a while. I've got some other stuff down the line for live streams. We might come back to it.
He does make that direct response where he lists off your claims. Would you respond to that?
I would respond to that. So standing, if you can give me a list of, you said A or you said X doesn't work because of these reasons. You said Y doesn't work because of list of reasons. If you gave me that either in video format or in writing, my email is sciencesiteup@gmail. I will absolutely respond to that. And Liam, no, Weather 101 is not on hold. I'm just going to only release 1 video a week instead of 2. And then you might get an IPCC video 1 week instead of a Weather 101 video. It's kind of depends.
Also, D&D, I don't think it's this Monday.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't last Monday.
Oh, so it is this Monday.
It would be this Monday, but I was going to
good.
actually ask you off stream if that meshed with your debate.
It does mesh with the debate because the debate is at 11 a.m. PDT, whereas D&D doesn't start until 4 p.m. PDT.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
I actually was careful about that.
D&D.
Monday's going to be busy.
This Monday. D&D this Monday. It's going to be great. Oh, yeah. You guys just met Hildebra.
Yes, we did.
You met a mysterious halfling cook.
And I'm glad that her name ends in BRUH. Bruh.
Yeah. Bruh. Hildebra. Okay. Well... creationist Dan, thank you so much for that shout out. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for watching tonight. Yeah, I hope you have a really good rest of your day, and I will see you all next week. All right, bye team.
Bye.